6 o'clock in the morning, a luxury cafe in Koreatown, Los Angeles. Amber Williams, a beautiful black woman, exhausted after a 12-hour nursing shift, just wanted coffee. Her natural curls pulled back, her grandmother's necklace resting against her brown skin. She stood in line, completely unaware that the next 2 minutes would change her life forever. Behind her stood Min Ji-woo, a Korean Mafia boss. Charcoal suit worth thousands, tiger and dragon tattoos crawling up his neck, cold eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. He noticed Amber's genuine kindness to the barista, her warm smile despite obvious exhaustion, her authentic humanity. Then the door exploded open. Veronica Chase, platinum blonde influencer, designer everything, phone already recording. And she saw him, her ex-boyfriend who had cut her off 3 weeks ago, standing near that black woman. What happened next was pure, venomous insanity. "That black bitch is hitting on my man!" Veronica's voice tore through the cafe like a weapon. Amber turned, confused, terrified. "Teach her!" Veronica screamed at her bodyguards. "Beat that black woman! Beat her, now!" The guards moved toward Amber. Then, one sound changed everything. Snap. Min Ji-woo's fingers. A signal. And what his men did to those bodyguards in 4.2 seconds was surgical, brutal, and absolutely justified. But what Ji-woo did to Veronica afterward, what he revealed about her father's debts, what he threatened to expose, how he destroyed her entire world in front of 15 recording phones, and what Amber discovered 3 weeks later in an envelope on her car. Before we begin this story, comment below where you're watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The morning air in Koreatown carried the scent of fresh espresso and ambition. It was 6 o'clock, that sacred hour when the city still belonged to those who worked while others slept. Inside the glass walls of Pearl Noir Cafe, the marble floors gleamed under recessed lighting, and the hiss of the espresso machine created a rhythm that felt almost meditative. Amber Williams stood in line, her body heavy with exhaustion that went bone deep. 12 hours. 12 hours of holding the hands of dying patients, of running between rooms, of smiling when her feet screamed and her back ached. Her scrubs still smelled faintly of antiseptic. Her natural curls, usually her pride, were pulled into a messy bun that had given up any pretense of neatness hours ago. The necklace her grandmother had given her, the last gift before she passed, rested against her collarbone, warm from her skin. She didn't belong here. Not really. This cafe served $20 lattes to people who wore their wealth like armor. But it was the only place open, and God, she needed coffee. Behind her in line stood a man who commanded attention without asking for it. Min Ji-woo wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Amber's monthly rent. The fabric draped perfectly across his shoulders, tailored to precision. But it was his neck that drew the eye. Traditional Korean tattoos crawled up from beneath his crisp white collar. A tiger on the left side, fierce and protective. A dragon on the right, coiled and ready. The ink disappeared under his jaw, suggesting there was more hidden beneath the surface. A vertical scar cut through his left eyebrow. A mark of violence survived. His expression revealed nothing. 2 men flanked him at a respectful distance, their eyes constantly scanning, professional in their vigilance. What Amber didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that Min Ji-woo had noticed her the moment she entered, had watched the way she let an elderly woman cut in front of her with a smile that seemed to cost her nothing, though her exhaustion was visible in every movement, had observed the genuine warmth she showed the barista, asking about his day as if she truly cared. In Ji-woo's world, such authenticity was rarer than diamonds. What Ji-woo didn't know What he couldn't see beneath Amber's tired exterior was that she carried her own burdens, that she questioned her worth every single day, that she worked herself to exhaustion trying to prove something to ghosts who had abandoned her as a child, that beneath her beautiful brown skin and warm smile lived a woman who constantly wondered if she was enough. The door burst open with theatrical violence. Veronica Chase entered like she was born to be photographed. Her platinum blonde hair caught the light perfectly, styled in waves that had taken 2 hours and $300 to achieve. Designer athleisure clung to her frame, the kind of casual that cost $1,000 to look effortless. Her phone was already raised, already recording, already performing for the invisible audience that validated her existence every moment of every day. She stopped. Her eyes locked onto one person, Minji Woo. What happened in Veronica's mind in that moment was a collapse of reality itself. They had dated for 8 months. 8 months of her using his mystique, his danger, his power to elevate her social media presence. She had posted cryptic stories about her dangerous lover, had leveraged his reputation without ever truly seeing him as human. And when he discovered her manipulation, when he cut her off 3 weeks ago with the cold finality of a door slamming shut, something inside her had broken. She had called 17 times. He had blocked her. She had shown up at his known locations. He had disappeared. She had sent letters, gifts, desperate apologies wrapped in designer packaging. He had returned them unopened. And now he was here, in her cafe. The cafe where she came every morning to be seen, to be admired, to feel relevant. And his eyes, those cold, unreadable eyes, had just glanced at the black woman in front of him. Just a glance, nothing more. A moment of human acknowledgement that meant absolutely nothing. But to Veronica, consumed by rejection, burning with narcissistic rage, desperate to reclaim what she believed was hers, that glance was an act of war. Her mind twisted the reality. He left me for her. He's been seeing her this whole time. This is why he abandoned me. This nobody. This... That bitch is hitting on my man! The words tore through the cafe like a gunshot. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. The espresso machine fell silent. Amber looked around, confused, her tired mind trying to process what was happening. Veronica's finger extended like a weapon, pointing directly at Amber, shaking with the force of her conviction. Her 2 bodyguards, hired muscle who had learned not to question their employer's increasingly erratic commands, moved closer to their boss, uncertain but alert. "Don't play innocent with me." Veronica's voice climbed higher, that particular pitch that came from someone who had never been told no, who had never faced real consequences. "I saw you. I saw the way you looked at him, the way you're trying to steal what's mine." Amber's heart hammered against her ribs. She took a step backward, her mind racing to understand. I don't even know who you're talking about. I just came here for coffee. I don't know you. I don't know anyone here." But Veronica was beyond reason now. In her fractured reality, this woman, this beautiful, exhausted stranger, had become the symbol of everything she had lost, the rejection she couldn't accept, the control she could no longer maintain, the relevance slipping through her manicured fingers like sand. "You think I'm stupid?" Veronica laughed, but it was a sound without humor, sharp and brittle. "You think I don't see what you're doing? Coming to this cafe, wearing those scrubs to look humble, playing the innocent act?" She turned to her bodyguards, her voice dropping to something cold and vicious. "You see this? You see what she's doing?" The 2 men exchanged uncomfortable glances. One of them, Marcus, had been doing this job for 5 years. He had escorted Veronica to parties, had stood outside boutiques while she shopped, had driven her to influencer events where she posed and preened. But he had never been asked to do what he suspected was coming. Veronica's eyes were wild now, her chest heaving with rage that had been building for 3 weeks of unanswered calls and blocked messages. She looked at her bodyguards and spoke words that would change everything. Words that came from a place of such casual cruelty that they seemed to chill the very air. Teach her. Teach this black bitch not to look at what doesn't belong to her. Beat her. Do it now. The cafe gasped collectively. Several people reached for their phones, fingers fumbling to hit record. This was Los Angeles. Everyone knew what viral content looked like. And this was it. Amber's face drained of color. Not just from fear, though fear was there, electric and immediate, but from the crushing weight of recognition. She had heard that tone before, had felt that particular brand of hatred that reduced her to nothing more than her skin color. It was a violence that went beyond physical threat. It was the violence of erasure, of dehumanization, of being seen as less than human. Marcus hesitated. His partner, a younger man named Kyle, looked at him for guidance. They were being paid $3,000 a day. They had done questionable things before, intimidated people, made threats, used their size to frighten. But this was different. This was assault. This was a hate crime being ordered in front of witnesses. But Veronica paid well. Veronica's father owned half the real estate in West LA. Veronica could make problems disappear with a phone call. Marcus took a step toward Amber. What he didn't know, what nobody in that cafe knew except for 2 silent observers, was that he had just made the last mistake of his professional life. Min Ji-woo had been watching everything with the patience of a predator. He had seen Veronica's entrance, had recognized the madness in her eyes, had understood within seconds where this was heading. His men had already moved into position, reading his body language the way musicians read a conductor. When Veronica had screamed her order, when she had used that word with such casual venom, something ancient and furious had ignited in Ji-woo's chest. He saw his sister Sun-mi in Amber's frightened face, saw the same vulnerability, the same undeserved cruelty, the same world that allowed people like Veronica to exist without consequence. Marcus was 3 feet from Amber when the sound cut through everything else. Snap. The crack of Min Ji-woo's fingers was sharp and absolute, a signal that carried the weight of command refined over years of absolute authority. What happened next took 4.2 seconds. Ji-woo's men moved like shadows given form. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion, no mercy. This was not a fight. This was an execution of justice delivered with surgical precision. The first bodyguard, Marcus, didn't even see the blow coming. A strike to the side of his knee, calculated, brutal, exact, dropped him instantly. Before his brain could process the explosion of pain, a second impact to the base of his skull sent him crashing face first into the marble floor. Blood bloomed immediately from his broken nose, spreading across the white stone like a crimson flower. Kyle, the younger bodyguard, had 1 second to register what had happened to his partner before he found himself slammed against the glass wall with such force that the entire panel shuddered. His arm was twisted behind his back at an angle that made every witness wince, held there by a grip that felt like iron. He tried to struggle, tried to use his size advantage, but the man holding him applied just enough additional pressure to make him gasp in pain and freeze completely. The entire cafe held its breath. 15 phones were recording now, capturing every second, every angle, already uploading to the cloud, already on their way to viral immortality. Min Ji-woo still hadn't moved from his position in line. One hand remained casually in his pocket. The other hung at his side, relaxed. The tattoos on his neck seemed to pulse in the dramatic lighting, the tiger and dragon appearing almost alive. His expression revealed nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no emotion whatsoever. But his eyes, those dark eyes that had witnessed and ordered violence that would make grown men weep, carried a message that was perfectly clear. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, yet it carried to every corner of the silent cafe with the clarity of a bell. You don't touch her. It wasn't a request. It wasn't even a command. It was simply a statement of absolute reality, delivered with the certainty of gravity itself. Veronica stood frozen, her phone still raised, still recording her own destruction. Her mouth opened and closed, her mind trying desperately to recalibrate, to find some way to regain control of a situation that had spiraled so completely beyond her grasp. Then something shifted in her eyes. Denial. The narcissist's final defense against reality itself. Ji-woo! Her voice cracked on his name, desperate and pleading. Baby! Baby! What are you doing? You're going to defend her? You're going to defend this nobody instead of me? She took a step toward him, hands reaching out as if she could still pull him back into her orbit. We can fix this. We can get back together. I know you still love me. I know you miss me. This is all just a misunderstanding. Ji-woo turned his head slowly, his gaze landing on her with the weight of final judgment. We were never anything, Veronica. Each word was measured, precise, surgical. You were a convenient my I tolerated out of boredom. That tolerance has expired. The words hit her like physical blows, her face contorted, cycling through shock, rage, humiliation, and back to rage. But Ji-woo had already dismissed her. He looked down at the two bodyguards, one bleeding on the floor, the other still pinned against the wall, whimpering softly. You work for someone who orders racial violence against innocent women. He crouched down until he was eye level with Marcus, whose face was pressed against the marble, blood pooling beneath his shattered nose. You have exactly two choices. The first choice is simple. You disappear from Los Angeles, today, before sunset. You get in your car, you drive until this city is a memory, and you never return. He paused, letting the silence stretch, letting the implications sink in. The second choice. Ji-woo didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Marcus saw something in those eyes, something primordial and terrifying. Something that understood exactly how far human cruelty could extend, and had no hesitation about reaching that distance. We'll go! We'll go! Marcus choked out the words, blood bubbling from his nostrils. We're gone! We're already gone! Ji-woo stood smoothly. A small gesture to his man, and Kyle was released, stumbling forward and immediately grabbing his partner, hauling him upright. The two men fled through the door without looking back, Marcus leaving a trail of blood drops on the pristine floor. Their careers in Los Angeles ending with the sound of their desperate footsteps fading into the morning. Veronica stood, trembling now, but not from fear of violence. She was shaking with the dawning realization of what had just happened. Every phone in the cafe was pointed at her. Every face watched her with expressions ranging from disgust to horror to grim satisfaction. She could already see the headlines, the comments, the collapse of everything she had built. You're going to regret this. Her voice came out high and desperate, the threat of someone who had just realized they held no cards left to play. My father is Daniel Chase. He owns half this city. He'll destroy you. Your father is Daniel Chase, owner of Chase Development Corporation. Ji-woo recited the information as if reading from a file, because he was. He always knew everything about everyone in his orbit. He owes my organization $4.2 million from an investment we made in his downtown project last year. Interest is accumulating at 8% monthly. He took one step toward Veronica. She stumbled backward, her expensive sneakers squeaking against the marble, her phone dropping from suddenly nerveless fingers and clattering to the floor. Tell your father that the debt is forgiven. Completely erased. $4.2 million plus accumulated interest. Gone. Ji-woo's voice remained perfectly level, perfectly calm, perfectly terrifying in its control. On one single condition. You never set foot in Koreatown again. You never enter any establishment I frequent. You never speak my name again. Not to your followers, not to your friends, not even in your private thoughts if you can manage it. He leaned in slightly, and Veronica saw something in his expression that made her blood run cold. Not anger, something worse, contempt mixed with knowledge. And if I ever hear that you've had another racist outburst against anyone, anywhere, at any time, I will personally send that video from your 26th birthday party to every single one of your followers. Veronica's face went from flushed to white in an instant. You don't have that. You couldn't possibly. I have everything, Veronica. I always had everything. Why do you think I tolerated you at all? The final piece of her reality shattered. She had never had power. She had never had control. She had been a toy that amused him briefly, and now even that illusion was stripped away in front of witnesses, in front of cameras, in front of the world that gave her meaning. Veronica ran. There was no other word for it. She fled from the cafe like a wounded animal, stumbling in her designer clothes, leaving her phone behind on the blood-stained floor, leaving her dignity scattered like debris in her wake. The silence that followed felt heavy, pregnant with the weight of what everyone had just witnessed. Then, finally, Min Ji-woo turned to face Amber. She stood there still, her back against the counter, her hands gripping the edge so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Her beautiful brown eyes were wide, swimming with unshed tears that came not from fear now, but from the overwhelming shock of being seen, being defended, being valued by a complete stranger when the world had just tried to erase her. Are you all right? His voice, when directed at her, carried something it hadn't held moments before. Genuine concern. Actual human warmth beneath the ice. I don't know what just happened. Amber's voice shook. She took a breath, trying to steady herself. I just came here for coffee. I just wanted coffee. Ji-woo made a subtle gesture. One of his men immediately went to the counter, spoke quietly to the terrified barista, paid for both their orders with cash that he didn't bother to count. Moments later, he brought Amber's coffee to her, holding it out like an offering of peace. Please accept my apologies for her behavior, Ji-woo said, and there was something almost gentle in how he presented the cup to her trembling hands. Amber took it automatically, the warmth seeping into her cold fingers. She looked at him, really looked at him, seeing past the suit, past the tattoos, past the violence she had just witnessed. What she saw confused her. She saw someone carrying pain, someone who understood what it meant to be dehumanized. You don't have to apologize for her, Amber said quietly, finding her voice again. You're not responsible for who she chooses to be. I dated her for 8 months. That makes me partially responsible for not seeing who she truly was sooner. There was something in his tone. Regret, perhaps, or self-recrimination. They stood there in the aftermath, surrounded by witnesses, still recording, still watching, still trying to process what they had seen. Then Amber asked the question that mattered most. Can I ask you something honest? Yes. Would you have done that even if you didn't know her? If she was a complete stranger ordering that? Amber's eyes searched his face, looking for the truth beneath the armor. Min Ji-woo thought of Sun-mi, thought of his baby sister, 16 years old, beaten to death by 3 men who shouted slurs while they did it. Thought of the decade he had spent hunting them, finding them, delivering justice that the law never would. Thought of the promise he had made over her grave. Never again would he stand by while the vulnerable suffered. He looked at Amber, at her exhausted beauty, at her dignity maintained despite everything, at her strength wrapped in gentleness, and he saw his sister in every feature. Yes, he answered simply. Always. And Amber believed him. She didn't know why, couldn't explain the certainty, but she believed him completely. Thank you, she whispered, and in those 2 words lived a universe of meaning. Thank you for seeing me as human. Something cracked in Min Ji-woo's chest. Something that had been frozen solid for 10 years began, impossibly, to thaw. The pleasure was mine, Miss Williams. Amber Williams. Mr. Min. He offered his hand. But my friends call me Ji-woo. When their hands touched, something shifted in the fabric of both their lives. Imperceptible to observers, permanent to them. The story was far from over. It was, in fact, just beginning. If this story moved you, pause for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been judged, dismissed, or attacked simply for existing in a space where someone thought you didn't belong? Have you ever witnessed someone with real power choose to protect rather than dominate? And when you think of the people society calls dangerous versus those who smile prettily while ordering violence, who are the real monsters? Share your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read every single one. And if you believe in stories about justice, redemption, and the humanity hiding beneath unexpected surfaces, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.